Hello, everyone. We will start in just a few moments. It's about 5:56 by my clock that I'm keeping an eye on, and we will start. I'm sorry, it is 6:56 Eastern Time. I'm in the Central Time Zone. We will start in about 3 or 4 minutes, and thank you for your patience. Good evening, and thank you for joining us this evening for this community engagement session regarding boundary policy review. On behalf of Fairfax County Public Schools and MGT Consulting of America, we'd like to welcome you. And at this time, we would like to introduce our interpreters so those of you needing interpreter services can get into the appropriate room. So Casey, if you want to advance, thank you. We'll start with our Spanish language interpreter and then just move through the list.
Buenas tardes a todos. Mi nombre es Marisela Castro. Soy su intérprete inglés-español. Cuando termine la presentación de los intérpretes, en la parte de abajo de su pantalla les va a salir un botón con cada uno de los idiomas. Si le dan clic al que dice español, van a poder escuchar toda esta presentación con mi voz en español al 80% y 20% del inglés. Cuando quieran regresar a la parte de inglés, dan clic al botón de inglés. Estos dos botones van a aparecer al terminar las presentaciones de las intérpretes. Gracias.
Next, please.
እኔ ለምለም ወልደ ሚካኤል እባላለሁኝ የፌርፋክስ ካውንቲ ውስጥ አማርኛ አስተርጓሚ ነኝ። በአማርኛ ይህን ስብሰባ ማዳመጥ የምትፈልጉ ሰዎች ቋንቋ ወይም አስተርጓሚ የሚለው ጋር ነክታችሁ አምሃሪክ የሚለውን ከተጫናችሁ በአማርኛ ይመጣላችኋል ማለት ነው የስብሰባው ትርጉም።
अस्सलाम वालेकुम जी, मेरा नाम रुबीना अहमद है। मैं उर्दू की तर्जुमान हूँ। आपको अगर उर्दू में इस सब को सुनना है तो नीचे एक बटन होगा, उसमें उसको आप उर्दू के ऊपर क्लिक करेंगे तो आपको उर्दू में तर्जुमा सुनाई देगा। शुक्रिया।
مساء الخير للجميع ومرحبا بجميع المشاركين لحضور هذا الاجتماع التابع لمراجعة سياسة الحدود لتحديد مدارس مقاطعة فيرفاكس. أنا اسمي زينة وسوف أساعد بالترجمة للغة العربية خلال هذا العرض. نرحب بالجميع وبالشركات الاستشارية MGT التي سوف تشارك بهذه الليلة بجميع العرض، وشكرا للجميع.
Excellent. Thank you to all of you. So the agenda for this evening, we've begun our introductions. Then we're going to give a brief overview of the project. We will explain our webinar polling and then have some discussion questions and then close out. Let's move right into the introductions for this evening. I am Dr. Michael Razor. I lead the Education Solutions Group for MGT Consulting. We are a nationwide consulting group that has been working in education for almost 50 years. We're based out of Tampa, Florida, but as I said earlier, I'm in the Central Time Zone in Indiana, along with Dr. Casey Price, who's one of our lead project directors, and you'll be hearing from Dr. Price just a little bit later. So tonight, we want to make sure that we are as clear, transparent, and can keep our message as simple as possible. So something you're going to hear us saying over and over again is there are no decisions being made tonight. And the overall scope of our project isn't even around decisions around your school boundaries in Fairfax County. It's about good policy and what good policy looks like and the difference between policy, procedures, and protocols. So, again, to simplify to begin, what we're looking at is, policy is really the guiding principles that you're using to get an outcome that you want. It is not the actual procedures that are being done. So something, again, that you'll hear a lot is governing bodies make policies, and then administrations and management make the procedures to carry them out. So there are lots of different types of education policy, and you can see that. I'm not going to read a document to you tonight word for word, but as you can see in the examples that we've put on the screen, policies are guiding principles and the direction that you want to move in and the goals that you want to achieve and what the means are to get there. But they aren't the line. In the case of boundaries, they aren't the lines that are being drawn. They're what drives the decisions of where the lines are drawn and where students go to school. Next, please. So Virginia Code gives a school board the ability to create school boundaries and policies around that. And where they're looking for, and what it does is many times is it is the efficiency of these boundaries and what they can do to make the district operate both efficiently and effectively. So Fairfax County School Board assigns pupils to schools and programs that serve the areas of their residence and in accordance with the local school boundaries. The Census Bureau actually defines school boundaries as geographic areas around school districts. But again, districts get to make those decisions, school boards get to make those decisions about how boundary lines are drawn, as well as the opportunities that students and families have to attend schools. So if we look at why boundary policies change or what drives boundary policy, really the most common thing today in America as we see boundaries is we're looking at equity, where there's quality schools for all families, quality schools for all students, regardless of where they live within a school district or regardless of socioeconomic status. But then there's other things from an efficiency or a logistical manner that also guide boundary policies. Geography, many times just based upon the size or concentration of population in a school district, boundaries are drawn sometimes based upon physical features of the land. Also, especially in a community like Fairfax, they could also be drawn around transportation because of the transportation lines and where they exist, the interstates and where they are, crossing major highways, those can affect boundary policy. And then also another major driver in boundary policy is stewardship. Is a building overcrowded? Is there a building that's under capacity? And are there school buildings that really have reached end of life and it doesn't make sense to renovate or rebuild? So as we look at Fairfax County, the current boundary policy hasn't been updated since the mid-1980s. The other thing is that there's a recognition that the current level of bond funding doesn't address the current needs of the district, whether that be capacity or renovations. The current renovation cycle within the district averages about 37 years for each school. And that number really needs to be about half that. There are major maintenance issues as well as timely repair of those maintenance issues. There is increased enrollment in certain pockets of the district that are causing, or division that are causing reliance on trailers, portable classrooms. There is planned population growth in the district as more subdivisions and housing units are built. Pre-K has become not a nice to have, but almost a standard of quality education. So there's additional demand for that, as well as almost 100 or over 140,000 of the 190,000 students in Fairfax County schools ride the school bus. So looking at transportation efficiencies is also important in the determination of boundary policy. So as we look at this nationally, this is not there's no formula to this. There's not one driver. Like I said, equity can be driving a lot of your boundary decisions, but you're not going to make a decision in a vacuum. You're going to look at what does enrollment look like across a school district. What are the condition of the facilities and where are they located? Many times populations shift, but buildings can't get up and move. So you might have a population shift away from where schools are. What are the budgetary implications? What are education regulations as well as educational expectations now of schools and of programs? We already talked about transportation. A nationwide standard, you see lots of districts trying to move to feeder pattern alignment. something that many times is called nesting dolls, where, for example, one high school might have 2 middle schools and 4 elementary schools that feed up like a pyramid into that, or any combination of that, but where there's a lot of certainty when your child starts elementary school that you know where they could go to high school just based upon the elementary school that they were going to from a feeder pattern standpoint. That's outside of magnet schools or choice schools, if you will. And then educational programming, where there could be an effort across the school district to create boundary policy. So there are the opportunities for an IB school, a STEM school, a expeditionary learning school, Montessori school for students across the district, regardless of where they live, basically creating mirror schools around the district. And then there are 2 types of boundary adjustments that are made. There's the standard boundary adjustment that are made for the reasons on the left. That is when, according to policy, many times boundaries are revisited in districts every 5 to 10 years, but then also there can also be administrative boundary changes that happen because of an emergency. That, for example, there's flooding and a school is damaged, or there's a tornado and a school is damaged, or you have it's something, again, that could happen in the case of Fairfax, is there is a military buildup or a military dress down of a base that is transferred, or an industry is transferred, and all of a sudden you have an empty school, or a school that is well over capacity that wasn't really predictable. And in those cases, many times administrative or emergency boundary changes are made. Next slide. So as we think about putting this into practice, where we need, and things that we need to consider, is if boundary changes are made, how are those going to impact families? And if those impact families, how are those impacts going to be accounted for? Are families going to be grandfathered into the school that they currently are in? Are brothers and sisters going to be allowed to continue in a school that a current student is already grandfathered into? What does a review process look like when someone asks for an exception? Is there an understanding of the governing bodies? Again, meaning that the board makes the policy, but then the administration makes decision on how to carry that out. What does the physical environment look like within the schools? So is there equitable opportunities for all students based upon where boundary lines are drawn? And then is there equitable access to different academic programs, as we alluded to earlier? So again, we want to make sure that you're doing things efficiently around your buildings when you come up with good policies. So, you're trying to keep your best buildings at high capacity from a structural standpoint. You want to make sure that, most of all, you're supporting families and students, and that the decisions you're making don't adversely impact their ability to succeed in school. And then as you think about these, what does timing look like? You really see 2 different models of timing. If you announce something in the fall of one year, you're probably not going to be able to implement it until the fall of the next year. And if you implement something in the spring, or you announce something in the spring of one year, you're almost waiting an entire calendar year then until the next year, until you could implement something, to give families and the administration the time to come up with the appropriate logistics from a staffing and a transportation standpoint. Next slide, please. So what are we trying to do here? And what is the real purpose of this project? One is we want to make sure that all of Fairfax is represented, and the concerns of all of Fairfax are heard. You want your policy to provide good stewardship. In many school districts today, populations are shifting, and the efficient use of infrastructure is of the utmost importance, because there's only a finite amount of money that school districts have, and it is the goal of most school districts to spend that on the success of students, not on school buses or on keeping buildings open that aren't at capacity. Then we want one Fairfax to be represented and want that to be the goal. But then the real thing we want to do is we want to be able to provide the school board and the administration with the information they need to make effective decisions. And that's important, because now that you've heard what are some of the decisions and some of the factors that play into good boundary policy, that's where we're going to shift and ask some questions. So the next steps are based upon the nationwide research that we've done, and based upon the impact we get from the Fairfax community, we're going to provide best practices and the thoughts of the community to the school district. But I want to be very clear that what I led with is what I leave you with tonight, is our study is not making any decisions on school boundaries. It is about good, sound boundary policy, and something that well over 35 years has not been redressed in Fairfax. So next slide, please. So one last time, there aren't any boundary changes that are going to happen today. There aren't any recommendations for boundary changes. There's going to be recommendations for best practices that need to be taken into account. And then really what the purpose of today is to get the sentiments of the community and what factors do we think should play heaviest in boundary policy. I'm now going to hand over to my colleague, Dr. Price.
Thanks, Mike. And so one of the things that you may have already participated in as part of this process is a survey. Earlier today, depending on when you received it, but at some point this afternoon, if you are a family member of a student in the district, you would have received an email to participate in a survey. The survey opened today. It will be open through next Friday. And that family survey is contained in the link in the email that you received. If you did not receive an email, please check your spam filters and any other kinds of quarantine filters, as sometimes survey links from those mass emails end up there. But then there's also a community survey that is open and available, and you can locate that by visiting www.fcps.edu. and just search boundary policy. They will have information not only about these groups that we've held, these webinars that we're holding this week, but also a link to that community survey. If you were on that link earlier this week to register for this session, the community survey was not there, but it is there now. And so again, this is for all family members and community members of students in the district. For that family survey, we ask that you take the survey one time per student you have in the district. And that the survey questions allow you to customize responses for each student. And then if you're a community member, we ask that you take that survey just one time as well. You should be able to access the survey through a smartphone, a computer, a tablet. It is available in a variety of languages, and so that should be translated. But if you have any questions, there is contact information both on the website and in the email to reach one of our team members to help you participate in taking that survey. It doesn't take very long. It's about 12 questions, and so it should take you less than 10 minutes. And as Mike said, we really are just using that survey to help understand what we should think about in terms of the community's wishes on future policy as the board makes some decisions. And so with that, please participate in the survey. We'll give a reminder at the end. But now what we're going to do, very similar to the survey, we're going to do a quick polling. As a reminder, this webinar is being recorded, but responses are anonymous. So as you participate, we won't know who clicked which buttons. Look, when we do this poll here in just a second, what will happen is the poll will be embedded in Zoom, and you'll see a box like one that is presented here just as a sample. You should see a box pop up that asks questions, and then you can click on one of the buttons to select your response. Once you've selected your response, go ahead and hit submit, and that will come into our team for review. Once we've collected responses, we'll give people a few seconds to go ahead and read those and respond. We will share those results here in live time so that this effort is transparent and that the community can see what the responses are and kind of what the wishes are of the community. There is no right or wrong answer in these. We really want to know what you think is best for your family and your community, and what you think ultimately at the end of the day is best for Fairfax. We're going to take a minute and pause and just provide a reminder that if anyone needs to move into one of the translation rooms, now would be a great time to move into those translation rooms so that the questions are available in a variety of languages. Okay. Oh, so sorry. Adam, if you wouldn't mind, or Kathleen wouldn't mind displaying the first question. And so those of you with us should see a poll question. It's poll number 1. Which of the following statements most closely represents your thoughts of FCPS's school boundaries? Either the boundaries do not change, the boundaries need to support a more fiscally responsible capital and operational infrastructure. And if you can't see that whole option, if you hover over it, you should be able to see that whole option appear on your screen. School boundaries should be reflective of residential neighborhoods and communities. I will do whatever it takes to give my child the best school experience possible. Or needs drastic change to support diversity of Fairfax County community. And we're going to give people a second to read through all of those and decide which statement most closely represents your thoughts of FCPS's school boundaries. And we'll give this about 10 more seconds, and then we will pause this poll and display the results. All right, and we can end that poll now. And so 38% of, there was 168 people who participated in this question. Of that, 38% do not change. 29% said school boundaries should be reflective of residential neighborhoods and communities. 18% said, I'll do whatever it takes to give my child the best school experience possible. 9% said, it needs drastic change to support the diversity of Fairfax County community. And 7% said, need to support a more fiscally responsible capital and operational infrastructure. All right, let's go ahead to the next poll. And so poll 2. Do you believe the current school boundaries support the community of Fairfax equitably? You can answer yes, partially, or no. And we'll give participants about 10 more seconds before we end that poll. All right, let's end that poll. Perfect. And so the question was, do you believe the current school boundaries support the community of Fairfax equitably? 58% said yes, 25% said partially, and 17% said no. All right, let's move on to poll 3. Poll 3. What should be the priority of how students travel to and from school? Provide walkable school communities as much as possible. Allow for a maximum of a 20-minute bus ride. Allow for a 20 to 40-minute bus ride. Or bus is needed to get students where they need to go. All right, and we'll give this 10 seconds as well. And let's close poll number 3. Perfect. And so again, the question is, what should be the priority of how students travel to and from school? 33% allow for a maximum of a 20-minute bus ride. 31% said provide walkable school communities as much as possible. 27% buses needed to get students to where they need to go. And 9% said allow for a 20 to 40-minute bus ride. So there seems to be some interest in having students attend school in a relatively close distance to where they live, whether that's a small commute, a bus ride of some sort, or whether that's walkable. There seems to be a lot of preference for living relatively close to where you're attending school. All right, poll number 4, please. Should specialized programs such as AAP centers be expanded into more convenient geographic locations to limit transportation time? Yes, programs should move, yet be fiscally responsible. Yes, programs should move regardless of cost to provide equitable access to all students. And no, keep programs at a small number of schools to centralize. All right, and we'll give this about 10 more seconds as well. All right, and let's close poll number 4. Perfect. So again, the question was, should specialized programs such as AAP centers be expanded into more convenient geographic locations to limit transportation time? And 40% of respondents said yes, programs should move, yet be fiscally responsible. 31% said yes, programs should move regardless of the cost to provide equitable access. And 29% said no, keep programs at a small number of schools to centralize. So it appears that there's some interest to expand those programs, as long as it's done in a fiscally responsible and reasonable way, but providing access to more students should also be a top priority. Poll number 5, please. What is the best way to address schools that are overcrowded? Adjust school boundaries to lower the number of students assigned to the school. Provide more temporary classrooms or trailers to accommodate more students at the school. Construct an addition or additional facilities on existing school grounds to accommodate more students. Remove or reduce programs to decrease students transferring into the school. For example, advanced academic programs and immersion. And adjust the school schedule to have different start and end times for students so the school can accommodate more students. All right, and we'll give this one about 10 more seconds as well. All right, and let's close poll number 5. So again, the question, what is the best way to address schools that are overcrowded? 51% said construct an addition or additional facilities on existing grounds to accommodate more students. 21% said adjust school boundaries to lower the number of students assigned to the school. 12% said provide more temporary classrooms, trailers, to accommodate more students at the school. And 8% said remove or reduce programs to decrease students transferring into the school, for example, advanced academic programs and immersion. And 8% also said adjust the school schedule to have different start and end times for students so the school can accommodate more students. So a decent spread, but seems to be some interest in exploring additional facilities on existing grounds where necessary, in addition to some other factors to mitigate school boundary, school overcrowding. All right, poll number 6, please. What is the best way to address schools that do not have enough students to fill all classrooms? Again, adjustment to school boundaries to increase the number of students assigned to the school. Remove temporary classrooms or trailers. Use permanent construction methods to create specialized school environments, modify or add instructional programs that will encourage more students to transfer into the school, for example, advanced academic programming and immersion, or close schools. All right, and we'll give this about 10 more seconds as well. And let's go ahead and close poll number 6. So the question was, what is the best way to address schools that do not have enough students to fill all classrooms? 41% said add or modify or add instructional programs that will encourage more students to transfer into the school, like advanced academic programming and immersion. 26% said remove temporary classrooms, such as trailers. 20% said adjustment to school boundaries to increase the number of students assigned to the school. 6% said use permanent construction methods to create a specialized school environment. And 6% said close schools. So certainly some interest in modifying or adding those instructional programs that encourage maximizing space and encourage students to come to the district. That aligns with some of the data that we saw earlier in tonight's poll about how we might be able to look at expanding access to certain programs to students across the district as well. And poll number 7, please. Who should make school boundary changes? The school board, your elected officials, the administration staff, so FCPS leadership, a separate qualified committee, selected school board members and administrative staff, or all of the above. All right, and we'll give this question about 10 more seconds as well. Let's go ahead and close poll number 7. And so who should make school boundary changes? 45% said all of the above. 31% said a separate qualified committee that's selected of school board members and administration staff. 13% said it should be the school board, the elected officials, and 11% said administration staff, so FCPS leadership. So it looks like some combination of administration and school board elected leadership should be working together in some way to make these changes. All right. We'll go ahead and stop sharing those polls. And so in conclusion, and thank you all for participating. We had about 175 participants for each one of those questions. And what we wanted to do tonight again is to have a transparent process that allowed everyone to see the responses of those in the room with us tonight. We will have additional webinars. We have one tomorrow night and one next Monday. They will be exactly the same as these, so we will ask the same questions. And then again, please take that survey. Take the survey, one per student, and that survey is in progress now through next Friday, through September 24th. What we will do is we will continue to analyze and report data to the school board after the survey is closed and after we have compiled all of the information that we've received from this process. And we will work to provide some recommendations so that hopefully Fairfax Public Schools, the school board, the administration can work to create evidence-based decisions for the future boundary policy. Again, one last time, this process is not about changing the boundaries today. It is about understanding what the policy is and what things should be considered when revisiting the policy. Policy change and the change of the actual boundaries are two independent processes. So there will not be any boundary changes as a result, a specific result of this study. That may be done at another time. That may be done in conjunction of some other change that's happening in the district, but that is not part of this specific work. Again, that community survey access is www.fcps.edu, and you can search boundary policy. And that family survey was emailed earlier this afternoon, to each student's primary family contact. Please check your junk mail, your quarantine folders, anything else that may have some sort of filter on it in your email if you did not receive the survey, to see if it was delivered there. Thank you so much for letting us be part of your community and letting us do this work with you. That does conclude tonight's presentation, and we look forward to presenting the results from this work, the rest of the work this week and next week, as well as the larger survey in the coming months. Thank you so much and have a good night.
Thank you, guys.